Welcome to my channel, Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The moment he stepped forward, the entire auction hall seemed to shift, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting to see whether audacity would be rewarded or crushed. The cavernous hall stretched endlessly, metal and shadow entwined in golden ambient light, alien glyphs etched into the walls glowing faintly, reflecting across armored spectators who filled every corner, their shapes twisting in anticipation. Eyes, claws, appendages, all fixated on the center, where a metallic cage hung suspended by thick chains. Inside it a tall, muscular blue-skinned alien girl with glowing cyan eyes and long white hair, her movements fluid despite the restraints, every flicker of muscle and expression radiating ferocity and curiosity. The clinking of chains punctuated the low hum of murmurs, whispers of greed and hunger vibrating through the floor. Centuries of survival, battles, solitude, and defiance were etched into her every contour, yet she bore the confinement with the dignity of a queen, her hair cascading over her shoulders like liquid moonlight. None dared approach. None dared risk the consequences of challenging a being of such imposing presence. And yet, here he was. Human. Alone. His figure diminutive among the sea of interstellar predators, yet his eyes held unwavering intensity, locking onto hers with a silent declaration that he would not falter. One hand raised gently toward her, not in command but in invitation, radiating empathy, courage, and respect, a gesture so alien to the expectations of this hall that it rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Spectators shifted uneasily, sensing a force unfamiliar even to their hardened instincts. The girl's cyan glow pulsed faintly, intrigued but wary, her gaze a mixture of calculation, curiosity, and silent challenge. The golden light reflected off polished metal surfaces, bouncing across armored forms and flickering on the holographic displays that hovered around the cage, projections of her strength, rarity, and combat history twisting and morphing in response to the crowd's anticipation. Dust motes drifted lazily through beams of light, catching the shimmer of chains and the delicate sheen of her skin, creating a suspended, almost sacred atmosphere. He took a careful step closer, unwavering in the face of centuries of expectation, studying not the statistics projected in neon holograms but the being before him, every nuance, every flicker of emotion. She leaned slightly toward him, cyan glow intensifying, curiosity mingling with suspicion. Time itself seemed to stretch and fold, the room fading away until only the two of them existed in a private, electric moment. His voice, calm and deliberate, cut through the tense silence, words chosen not to dominate but to resonate, to recognize, to connect. The girl tilted her head, a subtle smirk brushing her lips, chains rattling in acknowledgement, a silent dialogue transcending species. Around them, murmurs faltered, replaced by stunned silence, the spectators realizing that centuries of tradition, hierarchy, and fear were being challenged. Golden lights danced across polished floors, reflecting off cage bars and chains, emphasizing the contrast between captivity and possibility, fear and courage, isolation and connection. His hand hovered near the cage, trembling slightly under the weight of the moment but unwavering in intent, a bridge between worlds. The cyan glow in her eyes pulsed in response, a visual heartbeat mirroring the charged atmosphere, curiosity battling caution, intelligence meeting audacity. Every subtle movement, the tilt of her head, the gentle rise of his chest, the pause in her breath, was amplified in the hall's tense silence. Whispers surged like electricity through the crowd, speculation, disbelief, awe, envy. No one had expected this, no one had imagined a human stepping forward, not to dominate but to connect. She shifted slightly, muscles rippling under the soft glow, chains rattling not in protest but in recognition. The holograms flickered, displaying stats and abilities that suddenly seemed irrelevant, overshadowed by the raw, silent connection between human and alien. Golden light reflected in intricate patterns on her skin, accentuating every contour of strength, every nuance of emotion. Dust spun in light beams, shadows stretched across armored forms, the scene cinematic in composition and epic in scale. He spoke again, voice steady, a promise woven into words, respect, recognition, and acknowledgement of her autonomy. For the first time, the alien girl considered the possibility that this interaction was different, that the world outside the cage could be more than fear and exploitation. The hall seemed to hold its collective breath as the chains clinked softly, her cyan glow dimming and brightening in rhythm with the tension, a heartbeat shared across species. He stepped just slightly closer, never imposing, always inviting, a silent testament to courage tempered with empathy. Around them, whispers faded into awe, the impossible unfolding before every being present. Dust motes and beams of golden light highlighted every subtle shift, every heartbeat, every fraction of hesitation and indecision. Their fingertips hovered near the metallic bars, the air vibrating with possibility. For the first time, empathy met strength, courage met curiosity, humanity met alien intelligence, and a story began to unfold that would echo across galaxies, a tale of audacity, connection, and the breaking of long-held boundaries. The human's presence had shifted the atmosphere in the auction hall, an almost tangible energy rippling outward, stirring whispers among armored spectators and causing holographic projections to flicker as if aware of the change. The alien girl's cyan eyes followed him with razor-sharp focus, glowing brighter with a rhythm that pulsed like a warning and a question simultaneously. She shifted within the metallic cage, chains clinking softly, every movement a deliberate display of restrained power. Muscles tensed under her shimmering blue skin, rippling in response to the silent conversation unfolding between human and alien. Her long white hair fell like a silken curtain, catching stray beams of golden light, illuminating her form in fragments, casting shadows that danced across the polished metal floor. The spectators leaned forward, eyes wide, claws tapping in nervous anticipation, appendages twitching with curiosity and disbelief. None had dared approach her, none had dared risk offending her strength, yet this human, so fragile in comparison, stood unyielding, exuding a confidence that transcended fear. He took a measured step closer, hand extended, not to claim, not to dominate, but to communicate, to bridge a gulf that had seemed unbreachable. His gaze remained locked on hers, steady, unwavering, a beacon of intent that radiated authenticity. The cyan glow in her eyes pulsed in response, oscillating between curiosity and assessment, intelligence and instinct. Holographic projections shimmered around the cage, displaying her combat abilities, her rarity, her history, yet their significance dwindled in comparison to the silent dialogue taking place in the space between them. Dust motes spun lazily in shafts of light, golden beams slicing through the air, illuminating the intricate patterns of the polished metal surfaces and highlighting the tension that vibrated throughout the hall. The human's voice finally cut through the murmurs, calm, measured, deliberate, words chosen not to command but to resonate, to acknowledge, to connect. The alien girl tilted her head slightly, a flicker of intrigue passing over her features, the faintest smirk appearing, a subtle acknowledgement of his audacity. Around them, whispers shifted to murmurs, murmurs to stunned silence, as spectators realized that centuries of expectation were being challenged. The golden light reflected across her muscles, accentuating every ripple of power, every nuance of expression, and the cyan glow around her eyes flared faintly, a visual heartbeat that mirrored the suspense gripping the room. He took another careful step, the slight rustle of his clothing punctuating the rhythm of anticipation, his hand hovering closer to the cage, yet never imposing, never demanding. She leaned forward, testing his intent, muscles coiling and relaxing in a measured dance of predator and observer. Holograms flickered in response, projecting simulations of her strength, agility, and intelligence, yet none could capture the complexity of the connection now forming in the center of the hall. Golden light danced across polished floors, bouncing off chains, bars, and armor, emphasizing the delicate balance of tension and curiosity. Every movement, every breath, every flicker of gaze was magnified in the charged atmosphere, a silent symphony of risk, courage, and possibility. The human spoke again, his words soft but deliberate, resonating through the hall, respect, recognition, acknowledgement. The alien girl's glow intensified, cyan radiance pulsing like a heartbeat, a visual acknowledgement of the sincerity and courage she sensed. She shifted again, leaning just slightly closer, chains rattling softly, the metallic echoes harmonizing with the deep hum of anticipation vibrating through the spectators' armored forms. Around them, whispers evolved into audible awe, speculation, astonishment. No one had predicted this display, a human daring to approach, to connect, to respect rather than dominate. Her gaze lingered, calculating, curious, yet a subtle relaxation of tension in her posture suggested a willingness to engage further. Dust swirled in the beams of golden light, holographic displays casting fragmented neon blues, purples, and pinks across the chamber, creating a living tapestry of light, shadow, and suspended anticipation. Every subtle flicker of emotion, every micro-expression, every pulse of glow was amplified by the cinematic composition of the hall itself, every polished surface reflecting the drama of the moment. The human steps were deliberate, careful, measured, conveying patience and empathy rather than fear or recklessness. His hand hovered mere inches from the cage bars, trembling slightly from the weight of centuries of expectation yet unwavering in intent. She mirrored him, muscles coiling and relaxing, eyes glinting with curiosity, the cyan light pulsing in tandem with the tension of the hall. Holographic displays flickered again, projecting her history, her rarity, her potential, yet the numbers seemed almost irrelevant compared to the raw energy between them. Golden light reflected in patterns across her skin, illuminating the contours of strength and intelligence, highlighting the paradox of captivity and fascination. The human spoke softly once more, words carrying promise, honesty, and courage, weaving a narrative that bypassed language and connected directly to perception and instinct. She leaned forward slightly, the faintest ripple of amusement, respect, and curiosity brushing across her expression. Chains rattled, a delicate acknowledgement of recognition, a subtle dance of predator and observer, curiosity and assessment. The spectators shifted, some leaning closer, others recoiling slightly, yet all captivated by the audacity and tension of this human-alien encounter. Dust motes and shafts of golden light accentuated every subtle movement, every flicker of eye, every breath suspended in anticipation, creating a tableau of cinematic intensity. The cyan glow flared brighter, casting soft illumination on her sharp features and glinting across the cage bars, as if responding to the sincerity radiating from the human. He maintained eye contact, unwavering, hand extended in invitation rather than demand, embodying courage and empathy in equal measure. She leaned forward, a fraction closer, evaluating the balance of intent, strength, and patience, chains rattling softly in harmonious rhythm with the silent dialogue unfolding. The hall itself seemed to pulse, the golden lights reflecting off armor, metal, and holographic projections, emphasizing the epic scale and emotional resonance of the moment. Every whisper, every movement, every subtle exchange of gaze added to the charged atmosphere, creating a tension that was almost tangible, vibrating through polished floors and metallic walls. He spoke one last time, his words a promise, a silent covenant of respect, understanding, and connection, and for the first time, the alien girl allowed herself to consider the possibility that this encounter was unique, that the world outside her confinement might hold more than fear, exploitation, and isolation. The cyan glow softened into a steady shimmer, chains clinking lightly as if in quiet approval, and the human stepped slightly closer, never imposing, always inviting, creating a bridge between species, courage meeting curiosity, empathy meeting ferocity. Around them, the crowd held its collective breath, lights reflecting off metals and armor, holographic displays glowing in neon blues and purples, golden shafts of light dancing across the hall, capturing the extraordinary tension in every detail. Dust swirled lazily through beams of light, emphasizing the suspended moment, the delicate possibility of connection, the silent unfolding of a story that would echo across worlds. And in that charged, cinematic space, a human had dared to step forward, empathy meeting strength, courage meeting intelligence, possibility meeting defiance, creating a tableau that would redefine expectation, defy tradition, and ignite a narrative that could not be contained within the walls of the auction hall. The hall had descended into a tense stillness, every armored spectator frozen in a combination of disbelief, fascination, and apprehension, their whispers reduced to a ghostly hum that seemed almost sacrilegious in the presence of the unspoken bond forming at the center. The alien girl's cyan eyes flared intermittently, bright pulses of energy that reflected both her curiosity and her assessment of the human before her. She shifted within the cage, chains rattling softly, each movement deliberate, radiating strength restrained by circumstance yet alive with a predator's grace. Her long white hair swirled subtly with the currents of air that filtered through the high, shadowed ceilings, catching the golden ambient light in streaks that made her seem ethereal, untouchable, yet intensely present. The human remained unmoved, his gaze locked on hers, hands still extended in a gesture of understanding, patience, and defiance against every expectation of fear and submission that had long dictated interactions within the auction halls of countless systems. Golden light danced off the polished metal floor, glinting against bars, chains, and the armored forms of spectators, while neon holographic displays flickered with blues, purples, and soft pinks, illustrating her strength, intelligence, and rarity in stark, glowing symbols. Yet these symbols, meant to objectify and quantify, suddenly seemed meaningless compared to the silent, electric conversation that existed between human and alien. She leaned forward slightly, tilting her head as if attempting to decode his intent with more than just instinct, something higher, something intellectual. The chains clinked again, a soft, metallic punctuation to the rhythm of tension building in the hall, and the cyan glow surrounding her eyes seemed to thrum in resonance with the human's calm heartbeat. He took another careful step forward, the soft scrape of his boots against polished metal seeming impossibly loud in the suspended silence, yet never breaking the fragile balance of anticipation. Around them, the spectators shifted, some leaning closer, others recoiling instinctively, but all captured by the spectacle of the human challenging centuries of unspoken rules, defying instincts that had guided interstellar interactions for generations. The human's voice carried again, steady, calm, deliberate, words chosen not to command, not to threaten, but to bridge the chasm of species, culture, and centuries of fear. He spoke of choice, of respect, of recognition. The alien girl's cyan glow pulsed with increasing intensity, a visible manifestation of the analytical and emotional processes roiling within her, a combination of curiosity, surprise, and cautious intrigue. Chains rattled softly in response, as if acknowledging the sincerity of his presence, and the faintest shift in her posture suggested an openness previously unseen, a willingness to engage in a dialogue beyond words. Dust swirled lazily through the shafts of golden light streaming from high above, catching on the edges of chains, cage bars, and polished armor, creating a kaleidoscope of reflections and shadows that heightened the cinematic intensity of the scene. Holographic displays flickered and warped, attempting to quantify the moment, to reduce it to statistics and projections, but the human's courage, the alien girl's engagement, and the energy between them defied any numeric capture. The hall itself seemed to contract around them, every being present attuned to the subtle shifts of gaze, posture, and pulse. The cyan glow in her eyes fluctuated in rhythm with her breathing, each pulse illuminating strands of her hair, the contours of her muscles, the intricate details of chains, creating a tableau of restrained power and cautious engagement. The human spoke again, soft yet resonant, his words a careful layering of empathy, audacity, and acknowledgement of her autonomy. He did not ask for compliance, he did not demand submission. He simply existed, fully present, offering recognition rather than ownership, understanding rather than exploitation, courage rather than dominance. She tilted her head, chains rattling softly in subtle acknowledgement, and for the first time, a genuine expression, perhaps amusement, perhaps recognition, flickered across her face. The golden ambient light shimmered across her skin, the polished metal of her cage, and the surrounding floor, refracting across her muscles and the intricate details of her armor remnants, reflecting the tension and possibility in every surface. Dust motes spun slowly through light beams, catching the interplay of shadows and illumination, highlighting the epic scale and cinematic depth of the moment. Every subtle flicker of emotion, every micro-expression, every pulse of glow was amplified in the charged atmosphere, a silent symphony of risk, courage, and possibility. The human stepped slightly closer, deliberate, careful, maintaining eye contact, never imposing, never threatening, creating a bridge of trust in a space defined by centuries of fear and hierarchy. The alien girl shifted again, muscles coiling and relaxing, her glowing cyan eyes tracking every subtle movement, assessing, calculating, learning. Chains rattled softly, a muted percussion in the otherwise hushed hall. Spectators murmured in awe, speculation, and disbelief. No auctioneer, no bid, no law of tradition could have anticipated this display, a human daring not only to approach but to communicate with empathy and courage. She leaned slightly closer, a fraction of movement that shattered the centuries-old assumption that she could be tamed, quantified, or owned. The neon projections flickered, her combat abilities, rarity, intelligence, yet the room's attention remained fixed on the exchange between human and alien, the numbers irrelevant in the face of raw emotional resonance. Golden beams glinted across the floor, bouncing off armor and metal, cutting through the swirling dust, highlighting every detail of movement and tension. Her glow pulsed brighter, a living manifestation of curiosity, intelligence, and cautious openness, as if she were weighing not the human species but the content of his presence, his intent, and his courage. The human spoke once more, soft yet insistent, weaving a narrative of respect, understanding, and connection that seemed to resonate with the very air of the hall. She leaned forward slightly, cyan light flaring, chains rattling lightly, muscles poised yet relaxed, the faintest trace of intrigue crossing her features. The spectators shifted again, some leaning forward in anticipation, others recoiling at the audacity of the scene, yet all captivated, all caught in the cinematic spectacle of tension, connection, and possibility. The hall seemed to pulse with the moment, golden and neon lights reflecting off polished metal surfaces, shadows stretching and contracting, dust catching light beams, creating a living, breathing stage for this extraordinary encounter. Every heartbeat, every breath, every subtle motion between human and alien was amplified in the charged silence, a tableau of suspense, empathy, courage, and intelligence intertwining. She tilted her head, chains clinking, cyan glow steady yet bright, muscles rippling under the restraint, fully present, fully engaged. The human's hand hovered mere inches from the cage, the slightest tremor betraying anticipation yet unwavering in intent, a silent testament to courage and audacity tempered by respect. In this suspended, cinematic moment, empathy met strength, curiosity met courage, connection met defiance, and the impossible became palpable, a story unfolding in real time, destined to ripple far beyond the confines of the auction hall. The tension in the auction hall had become almost unbearable, a living pulse that vibrated through the polished floors, metallic walls, and armored spectators who now watched with rapt attention, unable to tear their eyes from the unfolding connection between human and alien. The cyan glow in the alien girl's eyes had intensified, illuminating her blue skin and casting delicate reflections across the chains that restrained her. Each flicker of light revealed the rippling contours of her muscles, the taut strength coiled beneath her skin, a predator both restrained and intrigued. The human stood firm, his hand hovering just inches from the cage, every movement deliberate, measured, and suffused with patience, courage, and empathy. The golden ambient light combined with neon holographic displays of soft purples, blues, and pinks, creating a surreal tapestry of color and shadow that danced across the hall and highlighted the intensity of the moment. Dust motes floated lazily through shafts of light, catching reflections off polished metal, shimmering against the alien girl's hair and skin, enhancing the cinematic atmosphere of suspense and fragile possibility. Her long white hair swayed slightly, brushing against the metallic bars, a visual counterpoint to the subtle tension in her posture. Chains rattled softly as she shifted, muscles coiling instinctively, yet a strange hesitancy lingered in her movements, a curiosity, a challenge, an acknowledgement of the human's audacity. The crowd, initially murmuring with expectation and anticipation, had fallen into a hush, whispers dying down as all replaced speculation. Every spectator sensed the defiance of convention, the breach of centuries of ritual and hierarchy, as a human dared to approach a being of unimaginable strength and rarity, not with greed, not with fear, but with understanding. The human spoke again, his words resonant and calm, carefully measured to convey respect, recognition, and choice rather than ownership, demand, or intimidation. The cyan glow around the alien girl's eyes flared in response, pulsing like a heartbeat, reflecting a mixture of intelligence, curiosity, and cautious amusement. She shifted slightly, leaning toward him, chains clinking softly in acknowledgement, her muscles coiling and relaxing as if weighing the balance of intent and trust. Holographic displays flickered and warped around the cage, projecting her combat abilities, rarity, and past achievements, yet none of it mattered in the face of the silent, powerful connection forming between the two beings. Golden light glinted off her skin, reflecting across the cage bars, chains, and polished floor, while neon accents from the holograms cast soft blue and purple shadows that added depth and drama. The human took another careful step, each movement deliberate, each gesture infused with patience, courage, and empathy. His gaze remained locked on hers, unwavering, projecting an unspoken promise that he sought not to dominate but to understand, not to claim but to connect. The alien girl's cyan glow pulsed in tandem with the tension, brighter now, almost tangible, radiating curiosity, intelligence, and cautious trust. She shifted again, chains rattling softly, muscles flexing under the strain of restraint, yet an unmistakable softening in posture suggested a willingness to entertain the possibility of connection. Dust swirled in the shafts of golden light, holographic projections reflecting off metallic surfaces and casting dynamic, multicolored reflections across the hall, emphasizing the epic scale and cinematic depth of the scene. Every subtle movement, every micro-expression, every flicker of glow and muscle tension was magnified in the charged atmosphere, a symphony of suspense, courage, and potential that captivated every spectator. The human spoke once more, voice calm, steady, deliberate, weaving a narrative of acknowledgement, choice, and connection. His words seemed to resonate beyond language, bridging species, cultures, and centuries of expectation, reaching directly into the awareness of the alien girl. Her cyan glow flared, illuminating the cage, the chains, and the surrounding area, while shadows stretched and danced in harmony with the flickering holograms. She leaned forward slightly, the faintest glimmer of a smile appearing on her lips, an acknowledgement of the human's audacity, empathy, and courage. Chains rattled softly, almost conversationally, a subtle percussion in the otherwise hushed hall, underscoring the unspoken dialogue unfolding between predator and observer, between captive and guest, between curiosity and understanding. The spectators shifted again, leaning forward in anticipation, some in disbelief, others in awe, all captivated by the cinematic interplay of power, restraint, and courage. Dust motes caught the golden beams of light, holographic displays flickering with neon blues and purples, creating a dynamic, almost living stage for the emotional narrative unfolding in the center of the hall. The human extended his hand slightly closer, careful not to impose, careful not to overstep, his gesture a bridge between worlds, a testament to the audacity and beauty of courage tempered with empathy. The alien girl's muscles tensed and relaxed in a careful rhythm, her cyan eyes pulsing in response, chains rattling softly, as if acknowledging the authenticity of his intent. Every heartbeat, every breath, every subtle motion between them seemed amplified, the hall itself resonating with the suspense and gravity of the moment. She leaned forward just slightly more, the glow around her eyes intensifying, a visual manifestation of intrigue, assessment, and cautious engagement. The human held his position, unwavering, presence steady, hand extended not as a claim but as an invitation to connection and trust. Around them, whispers evolved into stunned silence, awe, and anticipation. The impossible was happening, centuries of tradition, hierarchy, and fear being challenged by a single human daring to approach, to communicate, to empathize. Golden light shimmered across the alien girl's skin and hair, reflecting off metallic bars and chains, highlighting the cinematic, almost sacred intensity of the tableau. Dust swirled in light beams, holographic displays projecting flickering neon blues, purples, and soft pinks, painting the hall with dynamic color and depth, enhancing the visual drama of the suspended moment. Every micro-expression, every pulse of glow, every shift in posture conveyed the escalating dialogue, a silent exchange of trust, curiosity, and courage. Chains clinked again, softly, almost conversationally, a gentle echo of the unspoken pact forming between human and alien. The human's voice remained calm, steady, deliberate, weaving a narrative of respect, choice, and connection that resonated deeper than words, bridging the gap of species, culture, and history. She leaned just slightly closer, cyan glow pulsing brighter, muscles rippling under restraint, the faintest trace of a smile acknowledging the human's audacity and sincerity. Dust motes and light beams highlighted every detail, reflections glinting across metallic surfaces, holographic displays flickering in time with the tension, emphasizing the cinematic scope and emotional gravity of the moment. The spectators watched, breathless, realizing they were witnessing more than an auction, they were witnessing a paradigm shift, a story of courage, empathy, and the fragile beginnings of connection. Chains rattled softly, cyan glow pulsed steadily, and the human stepped forward with deliberate care, hand extended in an offering of understanding, a bridge spanning fear, defiance, and centuries of expectation. In that suspended, cinematic moment, the impossible became tangible, empathy met strength, curiosity met courage, and the story of human and alien began to etch itself into the consciousness of every being in the hall, a tale that would echo far beyond the confines of this chamber. The auction hall was suspended in a moment that seemed to stretch time itself, every armored spectator frozen in disbelief, awe, and a subtle fear of witnessing something unprecedented. The cyan glow of the alien girl's eyes pulsed rhythmically, illuminating the contours of her blue skin, her taut muscles, and the chains that restrained her. Golden ambient light spilled across polished metal surfaces, bouncing off the cage, the holographic projections, and the spectator's armor, while soft neon blues, purples, and pinks flickered from the displays, creating a kaleidoscope of light that framed the central tableau like a cinematic masterpiece. Dust motes drifted in beams of light, floating lazily as if suspended in the gravity of the moment itself, highlighting the delicate tension between freedom and captivity, fear and courage, defiance and curiosity. The human stood firm, hand extended, unwavering, his gaze locked on hers with an intensity that cut through the collective expectations and centuries of ritual. Every breath, every subtle movement, every pulse of cyan light between them carried meaning far beyond words, a silent dialogue of empathy, audacity, and connection. She tilted her head slightly, the faintest smirk curling her lips, a subtle acknowledgement that she recognized not only his courage but also the audacity of his intent. Chains rattled softly as she shifted, muscles coiling and relaxing in response to his proximity, a predator evaluating a force unlike any she had ever encountered, one that challenged the assumptions of dominance and fear. Holographic displays around the cage flickered rapidly, attempting to capture her strength, rarity, and intelligence in quantifiable metrics, yet their glow seemed almost irrelevant against the undeniable electricity flowing between the human and the alien girl. The spectators whispered, some leaning forward, others recoiling instinctively, yet all captivated by the audacity of a human daring to approach, to reach across species, culture, and expectation with nothing but courage and empathy. Golden light danced across her skin, reflecting in intricate patterns across the cage bars and chains, highlighting the taut strength restrained yet intrigued. The cyan glow pulsed brighter, almost a visual heartbeat that mirrored the tension and suspense of the hall. The human spoke again, calm and deliberate, his words chosen with precision to convey respect, understanding, and recognition rather than command or demand. The alien girl's gaze softened fractionally, curiosity mingling with intelligence, her posture subtly relaxing, a silent acknowledgement that his intent was genuine. Chains clinked in gentle percussion, a muted echo of the silent agreement forming in the charged air. Dust and light swirled together, casting dynamic reflections across armor, holograms, and the cage itself, creating a cinematic interplay of color and shadow that amplified the intensity of the moment. The human stepped closer, carefully, intentionally, his hand remaining extended in an offering of connection, a bridge built not from dominance but from audacity and understanding. The alien girl shifted slightly, tilting her head, the cyan glow flaring, muscles flexing under restraint, yet curiosity overcame instinctive caution. Every micro-expression, every subtle gesture, every flicker of light carried meaning, magnified by the cinematic scope of the hall and the charged attention of the audience. Holographic displays continued to flicker, projecting metrics of her abilities and rarity, yet the hall's focus remained entirely on the connection forming between human and alien. Golden light, neon holograms, dust motes, and reflections combined to create a visual symphony, emphasizing the epic stakes, the risk, and the unprecedented nature of the moment. The human spoke once more, his voice steady, soft, and filled with sincerity, weaving a narrative that transcended species and history, a declaration of respect, understanding, and the potential for trust. The alien girl's cyan glow pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, responding to the authenticity of his presence, her gaze locked on his, measuring, calculating, yet undeniably drawn toward him. Chains rattled gently, a muted acknowledgement, and she leaned slightly closer, curiosity overcoming instinct, courage engaging with empathy. spectators shifted in their seats, whispers fading into awe, murmurs of disbelief, shock, and astonishment filling the space between golden light and neon flicker. The impossible was happening before their eyes, centuries of tradition and expectation challenged by the audacity of a single human, reaching not to possess but to understand, to connect, to empathize. Dust motes caught the light, holographic projections flared, golden beams danced across polished metal surfaces, emphasizing every subtle motion, every pulse of cyan glow, every heartbeat suspended in anticipation. The human stepped yet another inch closer, careful, respectful, deliberate, embodying patience and courage, offering recognition rather than dominance. The alien girl shifted again, chains rattling softly, muscles flexing and relaxing, eyes flaring cyan in recognition, curiosity, and cautious trust. Around them, whispers transformed into a collective hush, awe replacing expectation, disbelief giving way to stunned acknowledgement that they were witnessing a story that defied convention, challenged hierarchy, and transcended fear. Golden and neon light intertwined across the hall, reflecting on armor, metal, and the cage itself, highlighting the cinematic grandeur and emotional weight of the moment. Dust swirled, holographic projections shimmered, and shadows stretched and contracted in dynamic patterns, framing the central tableau of human and alien, courage and curiosity, empathy and strength. The human extended his hand slightly closer, careful never to impose, careful never to threaten, offering not command but invitation, not ownership but recognition. The alien girl's muscles coiled and relaxed, her cyan eyes pulsing brighter, chains clinking in subtle agreement, a predator and observer engaged in a silent dialogue of trust and understanding. Every micro-expression, every breath, every heartbeat was amplified in the charged atmosphere, cinematic and epic, as if time itself had slowed to witness this unprecedented connection. She leaned forward fractionally, glow intensifying, an acknowledgement, a bridge forming, an unspoken promise that connection was possible, that courage and empathy could transcend centuries of fear and hierarchy. Around them, spectators remained entranced, whispers fading, breaths held collectively, as golden light, neon holograms, and floating dust painted a living portrait of the audacity of humanity meeting alien intelligence. The human spoke once more, his words a promise, a challenge, a testament to courage, empathy, and audacity, carrying weight that transcended language. The cyan glow brightened, chains rattled softly, dust swirled, light danced, and the impossible became real, a connection forged across species, fear replaced by curiosity, dominance replaced by empathy, audacity rewarded with recognition. Golden beams, neon reflections, shadows, dust, and holographic flickers combined to frame this cinematic, high-stakes climax, a moment designed to capture attention, hearts, and imaginations. Every heartbeat, every breath, every subtle motion amplified the emotional resonance, building suspense, wonder, and awe. The hall held its collective breath, the human and alien, locked in a shared narrative of courage, trust, and audacity. In that suspended, cinematic moment, the story of a human daring to step forward had reached its peak, empathy meeting strength, courage meeting curiosity, connection defying centuries of expectation. And in that charged air, glowing cyan eyes, gentle hands, clinking chains, golden light, and neon holograms told a tale that would echo far beyond the auction hall, a story of bravery, audacity, and the transformative power of understanding.